Welcome back to Change Ed.
Change Ed.
The number one podcast that you are currently listening to this very moment.
The number one that you are currently listening to.
Yep.
Yeah.
As compared to the one that you're not listening to.
Which is not your current number one listener.
That's right. I am your host, Andrew Kuhn, education consultant from the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit, number 23. And here with me is
Patrice Semichek, also an education consultant from the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit, number 23.
Patrice, we have something new on today's show. Never happened before.
As opposed to the other guests.
Every other show that we have, we have a almost retiree on our show.
Well, when this comes out, she will have been retired for like 3 days.
So she's retired.
Yeah, it makes me sad. I'm going to miss her.
Yeah, one of ours.
Too bad you can't retire.
Within our office, we have with us here Amber Molloy. Amber, welcome to Change Ed.
Thank you.
We're super glad to have you here. We find ourselves having so many wonderful, deep intellectual conversations with you, and we're glad to actually be able to capture it on the podcast.
Memorialize, I think, as Patrice called it.
Memorialize.
That's kind of
the
scary.
adult word.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah, that's a lot of
Not
letters.
just banter, not just philosophical banter.
So,
It can be that too.
yeah,
It's just recorded
all
this
the
time.
above.
So we have to behave.
Would you mind introducing yourself to the Change Ed Nation, please?
Sure. Amber Molloy. Been in the field for just over 30 years. Have a pretty diverse history that a lot of people aren't aware of. I started back in middle school, was my first teaching experience. Love that age, still love that age. Then moved to the classroom, taught in 5th grade for a bit, and then immediately made the switch into reading, like pursued my reading specialist cert. And I did that because I had started my master's in language and literacy. So I was fascinated with the impact that language has on understanding and thinking, and how can we grow better thinkers in our classrooms. So that was really at the start of my career, which is fascinating that that's kind of where we are now at the end of my career. But because language and literacy wasn't a degree in the local area, I finished it as a reading cert. Stepped into a reading cert position, a reading specialist position in the North Penn School District. And at the same time, North Penn had just opened a partnership with the Merck Institute for Science Education. And as a classroom teacher, science was a passion. Actually, in college, I started my degree in biology, did that for 2 years. So I have a rich history in science and in math as well. So I saw this as an opportunity that if they would take me, because I saw myself then as, oh, I'm this reading lady down the hall. But if they would take me into this program, which was a pretty intense teacher leadership program that North Penn had in partnership with Merck, with cohorts also in New Jersey and Rahway as well, I was like, if they could take me, I really think I could complement the work of science with my knowledge and understanding of language literacy and reading development. So it was kind of I'll apply and we'll see. And they accepted me into the program. So that was a 10-year partnership with the Merck Institute for Science Education. I spent 3 intense summers in different fields of science, earth, life, and physical science, and really worked with a whole cohort across North Penn around shifting the collective narrative around how we, quote, teach science, which was really exciting for me as like someone who was leaving the classroom and studied reading and language, and probably the most impactful professional learning experience I've ever been a part of in my career because of the intensity, because of the experiential component of it, and just the community that we all learned and challenged each other in. So that was amazing. So I did that for a bit. And then I just continued to serve in North Penn, an incredible community, a diverse environment, 18 schools, 13 elementary schools, community of reading specialists that was so robust, so smart, taught me so much. Stepped into a role, I guess it's leading, coordinating the implementation of RTII at the time. And I built the model for that, did that for a bit, then stepped into Supervisor of Literacy position and served there for a bit, and then landed here at the IU when the Office of Professional Learning opened. Because I think ultimately I've learned throughout my journey that what I am most passionate about is adults and growing those around us. And I think that's really my passion point. So there's my experiences.
So what I heard in your title was Amber Molloy.
There was no title.
Jill of all trades,
There was-
master of even more than she just
There was
mentioned.
yes, all true things, but she said no title.
Oh, but
Yeah.
we do titles here.
You do titles here.
I think that
It's very
I think, and isn't it fascinating in our profession that every organization has a different name for the same job?
We have literally had this conversation
It's
with
crazy.
everybody at every other IU. Like Tony, for example, does the same thing we do, but he has
A whole different title.
a staff development facilitator. But
SDF.
we are, and I don't even
SDF.
think SDF, but I don't even think that my email signature may not be the title that I use in this podcast. I'm reflecting on that now. I'm pretty sure I've made up that I'm an not educational. I'm an education consultant. I don't know what my email says.
I don't think for me, it's never mattered.
Yeah.
It's mattered who I serve in that role.
Yes.
And I think through my career, I can say, well, I served the sixth grade social studies students.
Yeah.
And I served my fifth grade classroom. And really at that time, that's all I served. I served my fifth grade families, my students. And then as I had the opportunity throughout my career, I served larger and larger audiences. But ultimately to me, no matter what the title was, I was able to define it as how I could serve and grow those around me, whether it be my students, my families, my colleagues, my learning partners. And I've always surrounded myself with strong learning partners. And I remember when I left North Penn and came to the IU, I remember, in, my tearful moments, I cry a lot, but just saying to my reading specialist team is I was scared to leave because I really saw myself only to be as strong as those around me. And they were the ones that built me up, not me. And I always have served from that way. I'm only the connector. I'm the one that challenges your thinking. And I always say to people, like, if I'm in your head after we leave, I've done my job.
Yeah.
Because all I want to do is slow you down to help you think through your actions. And no matter what my title is, that's ultimately the work I've done.
Change agent.
Change agent for sure. We've been doing this podcast. This is our second season. And through this work, we've been able to see themes that arise, not just based off of content area, but in education and things that we feel very passionate about and feel very moved to do. But that's 2 seasons, and you've had a number of seasons of this work in a number of different arenas. And so I'm curious to hear maybe some of those themes that you saw that came up that, you see in education, that you said you've done work in science and in literacy and science and literacy together and across the board. Are there themes for things that you see that come across for you?
I think that when I reflect back on all that I've seen, which is crazy to think that I'm this old all of a sudden, but
36, it's terrible.
I know, it's great. No, let's be clear. I'm going out early, everyone. Early retirement, early. Okay.
Early retirement. She is 27.
There you go. But I think that content may change. Content changes, but what never changes are the systems that support the content. Let me be clear there. It's not around that they don't change because many need to change. But I think often when we implement change, we're focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And I think there's too much focus on the what. And now I think our education is becoming industry and we're focusing on what's celebrated and magnified and is the moneymaker in the environment versus the actual root of the change, which is the human and the why. Yeah. And I feel like early on, even in my work in North Penn, it was always the what, how, why. But those who know me know it's really the why first. It's the why. And then maybe the what and maybe the how, I don't know. But for me, it's always the why and the how. Because the why and the how, if we can get our systems aligned around purpose and procedure, change occurs at a faster rate. And I think it sustains for a longer amount of time.
I was just about to say it's more sustainable when you understand the why.
Yeah. And the how. Like I think the how of a system is the alignment of a system. And as powers shift in systems or people shift at the powerful levels in systems, the alignment is lost.
Yeah.
And we've seen so much change in our field in the last 10 years, the alignment is lost, except for systems who focused on process and procedure. And in those systems, you can see change. They respond to change in a more fluid way. Yeah.
I think too, in those systems, regardless of who is at the helm, if you focused on what you're saying in a system, the system will continue to make that change regardless of who is at the helm. until there's a disruptor that like takes it completely off course. Yeah, I think we do ourselves a disservice by not focusing on the larger picture so much.
Well, it's the transactional element is so much easier than the transformational work. And I think that's where I've invested a lot of my time as a learner in leadership is to understand models of leadership that have the most lasting impact. And I think it parallels parenting in some way. And maybe that's why I went that route when I did is I do have 3 boys that are in their 20s, and to raise them as adults and as people, it's about transformation, and it's about helping them to see, you know, their gifts and their strengths and what they offer. And I think if we can work in systems and, quote, raise systems in that same way of aligning the strengths and helping people see what they have to offer, and it's not about transactional production.
I had a very impactful mentor of mine who said something very similar to what you said, but
Oh, thanks.
unfortunately they're not here right now. So, but they said that everyone's trying to recreate the wheel, but the reality is that the wheel's already been created. We just redecorate it, and it looks different. But we're all focused on recreating the wrong thing. How do we make these adjustments and make it look different? So that actually happens a lot in education. We were so focused on STEM. Now we're very focused on steels. We're still looking at integration and how do we bring together all these pathways.
We say we're looking at integration. I'm not sure we're really actually looking at integration.
Yeah.
I think if anything, the STEM movement showed us that we don't really want to integrate. And the battle that is fought or has been fought, kind of, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I kind of do. The battle that has been fought for the integration, STEM could have been an amazing thing. Steels or stream or whatever we're going to call it could have been something amazing that could have been transformative in the interconnectedness of content and learning. But I think if anything, that movement definitely showed us how siloed we are and how siloed most of us want to be.
So going off that, I'll jump on what you said as well, Amber, of that transaction versus transformational. So the concept of STEM, of steels, is transformational, but we're stuck in a transactional mindset.
Yeah.
So, yes.
That's like, and it actually connects to other conversations we've had about an infinite game versus a finite game. And that all kind of comes back to that mindset.
Can you tell who we're reading?
I love. Yeah. Simon.
But that idea of like, you know, do we have this? For me, it broadens this concept of the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. And
Which we've had in our vernacular, in our field
forever,
for gazillion years.
Right. So another example
as a transactional topic.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Another example of we're just redecorating the wheel, right? We're still kind of hovering over the same concept, but we're expanding our vernacular around it to include others in different ways.
Or repackaging it so it can be sold to be more transactional. Like I feel like when we think about all of the STEM, stream, STEAM, all of that, it's all the same thing. It's all 21st century learning, which again is another term to sell more books or have more PD or more whatever around the same thing. What?
Yeah.
You're in a place today. This is a fun place.
What do you mean I'm in a place today?
Just listening to you.
Yeah.
Usually you're the sunshine and rainbows person. And
well, you poked the bear a little too much today. I just, going back to what you're saying, we repackaged, we repainted the wheel a million times. And it's kind of like unit-based teaching or theme-based teaching we were doing back when I started or back when I was in school, right?
Sure.
Like we used to teach rainbows and butterflies, to use your term. We used to teach rainbows and butterflies to teach photosynthesis or whatever we're doing for 6 weeks. And then we'd move on to the next stop. That was project-based learning. That was STEM, steel, stream, whatever. Like it was all that, but that was bad. That was bad for a little while. And now we're not that we're coming back to thematic teaching.
What I think we keep coming back to, this is actually what we meant by it.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens is things explode. When I was a part of the Merck Institute for Science Education, and we were looking at how we taught science and how we wanted to provide more experiential opportunities or phenomena exposures, right? We wanted to provide that. And at the time, bringing me in as like the reading specialist to complement that, it wasn't a deeper dialogue around using language to grow thinking of that. It was around, can we get the set of books that align to that kit as a way to infuse? And then that's not what we meant. Right. That's not what we meant. But that's how we put it into action at the time. But was it great? Yeah, because did the books as a read aloud in the classroom or as a center to explore help build background knowledge for students as they could take that information into their scientific exploration and understand it at a deeper level? So yeah, I think it was good. But did we collectively all get behind the why we were doing that?
That's the concern. The 20 of you that were in that program totally knew the why behind it because you were immersed in that learning. I think sometimes what happens in our field, and I know this is where I struggle a little bit, and how do I convey my messaging? I have spent, because I'm afforded to in my job, weeks, months, years, building my pedagogy and my thinking around the why for why we do what we do, right?
Yeah.
I fully believe in PBL and STEM and STEEL. I fully believe in it because I know the impact that it can have because I have been able to have the time to dive into that. The conveying of the message around that, taking that experience you had has transformed you as a learner and a thinker and a leader. But how do we get that to people who have not been afforded that opportunity? Because when I see text being presented to me, I'm seeing it as something that my supervisor told me I should implement this and this, this, and this, and I don't understand the why behind it. And I think that's where we're kind of getting lost in the messaging sometimes. Yeah. So I think that when we go back to, when we go back to a district issuing a resource or materials to supplement our learning, the people who are a part of the pilot or a part of the building of the curricular resource get it. Yeah. But the dissemination of that information and the how and the why, I think gets lost. And then we end up with page turners that don't get the why. I feel like there's a hole in professional development that we could work towards filling if more of our PD was focused less on content specific stuff and more on understanding why.
I think that has to do with not professional development, but a culture for professional learning. And I think that
thank you for fixing that language.
Yeah, but the language, the way you articulated though, is typically what happens is because when you get a new resource, my goodness, teachers need to know what is all this? How does it work? I need to know the nuts and bolts. No different than handing them a new device, and they need to know, how do I turn it on? How do I plug it in? What do I do with it? I think that's foundational, but it can't stop there. So if it stops there, it's not professional learning. And I think even if I, as a leader, can orchestrate a very well articulated plan for professional learning, if the culture is not a learning culture, it will fail. So then I feel like we have to really, again, look deeper into the processes in the system. How are we aligned in our system? What do we value in our system? How do we honor the adult learners in our system? All of the adult learners in our system, not just the ones that raise their hand because they can stay after on Tuesday to build the new curriculum, right? So how do we honor everyone in our system to be a learner at various points? The greatest thread, when you ask me, Andrew, like what are common threads that I've seen over my career over and over and over and over and over, what I point back to always is the self-efficacy of the adult learner. I can learn, I can make change, I can grow those in my audience, to the collective efficacy across the system that we're all learning around this thing. We're all experimenting. I think that's the other thing in our field that's a challenge, is that we are never finished learning, ever, because the variable in our classroom is constantly changing. The humans we have now, very different humans than we had 30 years ago. So if I haven't continued to challenge myself to grow, I'm likely not serving them to the best capacity. And I guess going back to who I am and serving those I serve adults now. So if I don't continue to grow my andragogy around growing adults, I'm not serving them as best I could.
Right.
And that's who I've always been. But I think, to me, the common thread always is around the collective moving in the same direction.
Did you call it ambergochi?
Yeah, ambergochi, yeah.
I love it. I was like, yes, she did.
Is that what you said? You said andragogy.
I said andragogy.
Oh, you said andragogy?
Yeah.
Andragogy is a real word.
I know, but... now I thought we're throwing out names. So I was like, yes, Andrew is in the gochi. I got it.
There you go.
I thought you first went with ambergochi.
It would have been amazing if she said ambergogy.
That's what I thought. I was like, yes, you're for your own self.
It's my new field.
Yeah, if you don't have an A name, too bad you can't have the gochi.
You don't get the
no goji for you.
No goji.
Well, my question in all of this is, could this be like creating a meal? and you have all of the right ingredients, which is key to make this meal. But the part that could be off is that we don't have the right amounts of each thing. So yes, we're trying to make some sort of casserole, but the casserole is going to taste off because we've got too much salt or we've got too much of something. And my wondering is, are we in that spot where within our system, we have these things that we look at to evaluate how we're doing, to hold accountability, but could some of those things be off to where we're trying to get a quick answer versus, again, transactional versus transformational? So one of the things, and the reason I'm bringing this up, when I look at my view of your career, is that you're able to take that and not just look at it from a macro view, but you're able to get down to a micro view to say, well, what was the change that we actually implemented here, right? Like we might not have the result just from this professional learning, but we saw growth in conversations or growth in questions or growth in what are we getting back? Are they asking for more? Where are they headed? So I feel like you're able to mine through that to say, okay, yeah, overall, this is a huge success, but what does that mean? We can't just walk away on the win of this. Like,
what's
we did
next?
Great pat on the back is like, where do we go now? What does that mean? What do they need? And I think that to me is very impactful in my career, but also I see a very strong, definitive thing for your career where you weren't satisfied with just a slap on the back.
I did it. I'm done.
Yeah. You're
never done.
You wanted more. There was more work to be done. And as a model for, which we're going to get to in a minute, all of your people of like, we're not just done, right? Like it's not just this.
Constant growth.
Right. Constant growth. So I think it's to be noted for you as an individual. That's why you have your Amber Gochi, because it's always, you're never done.
Well, I think it's just, it's that mindset of growth and learning. And I think that's ultimately it. Systems that are aligned around growing and learning, that's the through line. Your adults in your space are all learning and growing. And then as leaders, if we can help just kind of map out a learning path. So if you can stay with me on this path, as a collective, we're going to be traveling down the same path. Now, that doesn't mean you don't stop along the way and admire the roses and go off over here and deepen in your learning down another avenue. You're still adjacent to my path. And I'll bring you back onto the path. And now I'm going to honor that extra learning you got outside the path and bring it into my collective. And I think whenever I've had the opportunity to actually honestly have the joy of holding a collective, that to me is what has fed me my entire career. It's magical because in a collective, you have so many diverse perspectives, no different than a classroom, right? Yeah. So when I had my collective of my 5th grade classroom, when it all started, it was all about the humans in my space and how we created the community. And that's who we are as educators. That's what we do. But to take that to the adult level, sometimes that's missed. And it's, I think the difference in leadership styles, we know we can study the field of leadership, what kind of leaders people are, but for me, the collective, to take a collective and have us all learn and grow. But at the same time that we're all learning together, yes, we can do a common book read. Sure. We can all explore the same philosophy by some author. Fine. But what's most powerful is when those within the collective research and read in the ancillary stuff.
And bring things to the group.
And bring it to the group.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the collective, though. And the other powerful thing is we're questioning. We're not following lockstep, one philosophy, one author. We're bringing in more research. And I love that idea of, and maybe that's my Merck work back in the day, is we were teachers as researchers, as teacher leaders in the landscape. So Merck was supporting us with the content and supporting us with the pedagogy of what it looks like with students. But then we were playing with that.
Right. I think to a testament to your leadership style, the fact that as a leader, you not only allow but encourage questions is a very different approach than most people are used to. I'm not sure many leaders, administrators, whatever we want to call them, and a leader and administrator are two different things, but I'm not sure there is the culture of let's ask the question. And I could easily see how someone who is not used to let's ask the question, but I'm also going to ask questions too. Yeah. I have not had the pleasure of you being my supervisor, but I have had the pleasure of you being my friend. So I appreciate that. I could see how it would be intimidating to work for someone like you as a rule follower, because I would assume Now, knowing you, I know this is not the case. But initially, if I'm not used to this culture that's been created, I'm a new person in, someone asking me questions about what I'm doing or why I'm doing it and what I'm thinking. Yeah. Because if I'm not used to articulating my thinking, it would feel almost like you don't trust what I'm doing. But what I have learned from you is the way in which you ask the question changes the response. Yeah. The relationship that you develop with the person makes a massive difference because then it is not assumed that you're coming at me asking me questions because I'm not competent. So I think that I don't want to say, well, for me, what you have changed in me is a few things. You have allowed me to ask the question, feel like it's okay to not have the answers because I've always felt like I need to have the answer. So I appreciate your leadership style because while you were not my supervisor, you were always someone that I can come to and say, I'm unsure. And the comfort of being able to have someone in a leadership role to be able to be vulnerable enough to say, I'm unsure, I need your help is a massive, massive support that I'm not sure everyone has everywhere. So I can see how when I'm looking back at the last 2 months of the love of Amber that has just been coming in, the impact that you have had because of who you are as a human is, I don't think many people are going to surpass that. So I am not going to cry, but I am going to cry. Thank you. That's all. I'm done. Wow. Go.
I thank you. And I think that I'm humbled by everything that people have been saying about me and to me. Yeah. And what's fabulous is what I keep being reminded of. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just slowing down.
And it's a new beginning. You're not done. You're not done.
And there's too much that I've honed in my skill set over the years to just not continue to serve. Yeah. And when you say me as a human, I think that I've always held the belief that as a human, I need to continue to evolve and grow and learn. And I am so forever grateful to the mentors that I had in the North Penn School District who they've 100% made me who I am as a leader and sparked the interest in leadership and continued to just fuel my flame just to be better and better. Yeah. I want to, some of the things that you said that I just want to call out is like back to this collective that I build, whether that is a large community, a classroom, a large cohort of teachers. But to me, that community is a collective in learning and in problem solving. And so it's not around, I think my asking of questions, my goal is to model the behavior so that we can all ask that of each other. But what's most important is you're not just questioning your system, you're problem solving to grow your system. And that's the difference, because I think we start by questioning, well, why did she do that? Why did they make that decision? Right. Versus, wait, I wonder why they made that decision. And what if we tried things this way, would our collective momentum accelerate? So building an opportunity for that, what if? So it's not just the questioning, like you say, is like, oh, sometimes that's like, you're judging me, you're threatening me, whatever. Right. And then I can't talk about this without calling out the intense study that I have taken on in this arena of coaching. And I think that stems from 30 years ago when I was working as a reading specialist. And I have always seen my work as growing readers as me coaching readers. Yeah. I want readers to explore the world and question and seek out new information to continue to recreate their belief structure. And I want them to continue to read and read and read, right? So that idea of questioning and coaching, I think stems to who I am as an educator. Yeah. That was my fifth grade classroom. Right. Explore, and then now we're circling all back around to this idea of what is STEELS, what is STEM, what is inquiry-based instructional design 30 years ago. It's truly lighting a fire in our learners, be them 4-year-olds or 44-year-olds, is how are we creating a system of asking questions about the world around us?
Patrice, we've been finding ourselves in an amazing scenario where we're having multiple crossover episodes. It's not just one episode, but there are two, because we're having great conversations.
Well, and we don't want to bore people with an hour
podcast.
But honestly, these should Could be an hour. Maybe we should do special editions.
Ooh.
Like, here's the whole 1 hour interview.
Yeah. 2 for the price of 1.
If you want to listen to it short.
1 for the price of 2?
1 for the price of 2?
I don't know.
That does not sound appealing. I don't want to pay.
Feels like either way I'm
double.
paying
Well,
more.
but listen, they can pay us because twice of 0 is still 0.
Yeah. So here we are continuing our conversation with Amber Molloy.
Yeah. I'm still sad. Gonna miss her. A lot. We'll have lunch. Not with you, though.